a defiant Donald Trump speaking at Mar-a-Lago just minutes ago with a litany of commentary about not just the case that was filed today, but attacking the various prosecutors who are investigating him. But this is not just about the law. This is also about politics. This is politics meets the law. Donald Trump is clearly using this event today, as we just saw, as an opportunity politically. So let's talk a little politics. Back with us again is former White House communications director under Trump, Anthony Scaramucci, and Trump's former acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, both of whom have been critical of their former boss since their time with him. All right, Mick, let me start with you. So you heard the speech that Donald Trump gave. He didn't just focus on this case. He didn't just focus on the other cases. He sort of went through the litany of 2020 election fraud, et cetera. You think he went too far?
No, I actually think he didn't go nearly far enough, Dan. Keep in mind, this is a speech that, for the first time in a long time, people might be watching that didn't vote for him in 2020 or thinking about voting for him, or who knows, it's not just the MAGA crowd. This was not a rally. He had a chance to speak to people that ordinarily he doesn't get a chance to speak to. And the speech can only be described as boring. I mean, if you're talking about your debt to equity ratios and your disclaimer clauses on your disclosures, my goodness gracious, this was a low energy speech. This was a boring speech. People wanted to sympathize with him. People who watched all day and knew he was speaking saw what happened today in the indictment. They saw the commentary about how weak the indictment is, about how overreaching the district attorney might be in Manhattan. They're watching because they're sympathetic to Donald Trump, and he gave them nothing tonight to say, you know what, I think you should vote for me in 2024. So I'm not sure how this speech got written. The speech was almost 100% scripted, 100% read. He went off script maybe for 5 or 10 seconds during the whole speech. But this has got to be seen as a lost opportunity for the Trump campaign, with such a great opportunity before him tonight that they blew.
But, Anthony, it was authentic Donald Trump.
It was, but I'm going to take a little bit of a contrarian view here from the punditry. I think he got crushed today mentally. I think the fingerprinting, being in the courtroom, the fact that he was arrested and arraigned in a United States courthouse, obviously a state courthouse, but you get what I mean, in the country that he was president of, I think it took the wind out of him, and he looked subdued tonight as a result of that. So he gave that speech, but he didn't give it with a vim and vigor. And I'm going to tell you something that I noticed, I'm sure Mick notices too, the family was not there with him. And whether you like Mr. Trump or dislike him, he's a family-oriented person. He's the Logan Roy of American politics. He may not love these people the way normal people love them, but he wants them around. And they're not going to be with him in 2024. So, there's a chance here. People think I'm crazy, but there's a chance here he finds a way out, even though he's ahead in the polls as it relates to beating the Republicans. There's really not a legitimate path to him to winning this election. And the demography has changed dramatically in the country. So we'll see what happens. But he looks exhausted and he looks beaten, and he's about to get beaten again in Georgia. So we'll see.
Yeah, you raised a really interesting point, Anthony, that I was talking about with these guys here on the set a few moments ago on how he looked, and the fact that what a day. I said, what a day he's had. This morning, he was in Manhattan. He's been in court. He went through what can only be described as a very dramatic, maybe by some accounts even traumatic for some people, perhaps not him, experience of being booked on felony counts, having all your things taken away from you, separated from your lawyers, taken into a room, held there waiting for the judge, treated like any ordinary person, flying back to Florida. And again, the same thing. He walks out on the stage alone. His wife, Melania, was not there. We did see Eric Trump and his wife, Lara Trump. Obviously, Ivanka is far away and has made it clear she's staying out. I mean, both of you have worked very closely with him. That it's got to have an effect to have the people you rely on most in your life not in your corner on this historic day when you were the first former president of the United States of America to be indicted on felony charges.
I totally agree with you.
Listen,
so anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mick.
Well, just saying, Anthony's probably right. I mean, keep in mind, let's not lose sight of the fact that, Ivanka's not there. She lives down the street. I assume that Melania is on the property. This speech tonight was given for Mar-a-Lago, so it's an excellent point that Anthony makes. Maybe that explains why the speech was so low key and so low energy. Again, I was expecting something a lot more exuberant. I thought the day went about as good as it could possibly have gone for the president. Again, even his enemies, Mitt Romney is defending him. John Bolton is defending him. Even former Obama administration officials are defending him. I thought he'd be up and exuberant and sort of have that infectious energy that he gets. Keep in mind, this is a true extrovert. He usually draws energy from these types of things. And Anthony's correct. He looks like he's whipped. And I wonder if it doesn't have to do with some of the gravity of the day and then some of the lack of the family there. Because Anthony's right that as much as he's criticized for his family, he does care when they're there, and they weren't there for him tonight.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.